In the Sun Belt, Byron Dinkins was the main 49er as UNC Charlotte knocked out VCU and joined the field of 64. Lionel Simmons has been the man LaSalle turns to, and once again the sophomore led the Explorers as they won the Metro Atlantic by beating Fordham. In the West Coast Athletic Conference, Loyola had a tough time with Santa Clara, but the regular season champs added the tournament title as well. The nation's leading scorer, Hersey Hawkins, was featured in the Missouri Valley title game. Hawkins had 29 as the Bradley Braves dumped the Redbirds of Illinois State and looked ahead to even greater heights. And in the Atlantic 10, the top-ranked Owls of Temple held their hands high after knocking off the Rhode Island Rams. But the week's excitement had only begun.
Detroit can tie it with a 2, win it with a 3. Tullis now from the perimeter. In the bucket! He fired it home, a three-pointer! Detroit wins it! 75-74, Archie Tullis at the buzzer, a three-pointer! What a finish!
Ingolstadt off the side, 12 seconds left. Irvine looking for the upset. There's 4 seconds, 3 seconds. UC Irvine is in the championship game with a stunning 74-70 victory over Nevada, Las Vegas.
Lecker can win it. Oh, he does. Does it count? Yes, it does.
Next, a CBS Sports special presentation.
The ball is tipped. There you are. You're running for your life. You're a shooting star, and all the years no one knows just how hard you worked. But now it shows. In one shining moment, you reach deep inside. One shining moment, you knew you were alive. Feel the beat of your heart, feel the wind in your face. It's more than a contest, it's more than a race. Your best, 'cause inside you knew that one shining moment you reach for the sky. One shining moment you knew. One shining moment you were willing to try. One shining moment you knew. One shining moment.
Smart takes the shot.
1 year ago, one shining moment. Today, it begins again, a new road to the Final Four.
CBS Sports presents The Road to the Final Four, sponsored by Nufrin. Discover the medicine in these little yellow pills. U.S. Armed Forces, it's a great place to start. And by Express Mail Overnight Service.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Nance along with James Brown. Welcome to the road to the Final Four on CBS. This year, the college basketball world is celebrating a golden milestone.
Jimmy, it's been 50 years since the NCAA National Championship first began. The Tall Firs of Oregon, with Howard Hobson at the helm, claimed the first crown back in 1939 after they outclassed a field of only 8 teams. Now, of course, there's a field of 64 teams, and all the media exposure has turned the tournament into March Madness, one of the country's premier sporting events.
And tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern, we'll find out precisely which 64 teams will set out on the road to the Final Four. As of now, 15 teams have automatically qualified. And over the course of the next 45 minutes, we'll examine the field and take a look at some of the big stories as tournament time draws near. Then we'll send you out live to Madison Square Garden, where Syracuse and surprising Seton Hall will meet in the first of the Big East semifinals. And at 4 Eastern, it's off to Indiana, where the defending national champions need a win over Iowa to help secure their chances to be picked as an at-large tournament team tomorrow.
Jimmy, league tournament play is drawing to a close around the country, and there were some major upsets that maybe didn't make the morning papers. Let me bring you up to date there. Cal Irvine in the PCAA semifinals knocked off the nation's 7th-ranked team, UNLV, by 4 points. That coming after UNLV had beaten Cal Irvine twice this season by a combined 57 points. So now Cal Irvine will move into the PCAA finals against Utah State, which was a 7-point winner over Cal Santa Barbara. In the WAC semifinals, BYU was upset. BYU, of course, the nation's 17th-ranked team. They were beaten by UTEP, and UTEP beat BYU for the second time on BYU's home court. They will now play Wyoming in the WAC tournament final. Wyoming was a 2-point winner. That victory came on a last-second shot by their center, Eric Lechner. Here's the inbounds pass. 6'11" Lechner nails the 19-footer, and Wyoming escapes with a 2-point victory there, 60-58. Now, in the Pac-10 quarterfinals, UCLA's season was brought to a close by Washington State, a 2-point winner there. And in the Midwest Collegiate semifinals, an interesting story here. Detroit, 0-14 at the start of the season, comes away with a 1-point victory over Evansville. Take a look at how it happened. After this free throw is missed by Evansville, Archie Tullis of Detroit takes the pass. He goes down court and nails a 3-pointer for 3 of his 41 points. Detroit wins that game by 1 point, and Jimmy, their record now 7-22. They could conceivably make the NCAA tournament with one of the worst records ever.
That would be amazing, but they have to get by Xavier and Byron Larkin, a team that made waves last year in the tournament, upsetting Missouri last year. All right, JB, coming up, we'll check in live in Kansas City, a city with a tradition of memorable Final Fours.
Kansas City, gonna get my baby back home. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to Kansas City, gonna get my baby back home. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a long, long time since my baby's been gone.
From now, everybody in college basketball hopes he'll be going to Kansas City, and the jewel of America's heartland will roll out the red carpet.
Kansas City is indeed ready, as you can see all over the town. We're getting decorated up for the biggest event to hit our city in many, many years.
Kemper Arena has never hosted a Final Four, but the City of Fountains has been the site of 9 previous NCAA championships. Here at Municipal Auditorium, dating back to 1940, many were classics.
The first really big highlight at Kansas City was the year when San Francisco came in with Bill Russell and K.C. Jones. They were playing the defending champion LaSalle in the finals, and San Francisco won the tournament, and they went on in the next year were undefeated and ran their winning streak up to 60 before it was finally broken.
Perhaps the best championship game of all time was played in Kansas City. Kansas and North Carolina triple overtime.
Parker throws a long one into the left side. They beat it into Stills, and it's tapped away from Stills into the hands of Kearns, and we win! 54-53, North Carolina did it!
Not all tournament games in Kansas City have been famous. One in particular is infamous. 2 years ago, Michigan State played Kansas in a regional semifinal. It was the day time stood still.
The clock is not running. It's been stuck on 2:20. Now finally it starts again. And Judd Heathcote is going to raise some net. There must have been 35 seconds that ran off. The clock was not
But the folks in Kansas City did not let time pass them by. They scrapped the old clock and scoreboard, and this week proudly unveiled a new multi-million-dollar system, the state-of-the-art.
Everything's up to date in Kansas City. They've gone about as far as they can go. They got a big theater they call a Burley Q. For 50 cents you can see a dandy show.
We want people to look at it and to see it and say, hey, that is about as good as you can find anywhere.
Oh, that's about as far as I can go.
Yes, sir. That's about as far as he can go.
Well, Kemper Arena and the city of Kansas City right now kind of getting a test run as they are hosting the Big 8 tournament. 4 teams left in that one right now.
And, of course, for teams around America, Jimmy, they'll be ending the suspense tomorrow at about 5:30 Eastern Time when the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee will make official the 64 teams invited to this year's tournament. And hosting that show tomorrow for us will be Tim Brandt. And let's check in live in Kansas City with Timmy Brandt.
James, we are camped here at the NCAA tournament headquarters, and Kansas City has, in fact, become the focal point in college basketball. I'll be here throughout the weekend to keep you updated on the selection process of both the men's and women's tournament, ending, of course, with the announcement of the 40 women's teams and the men's 64 teams. That'll be on Sunday. And for both committees, this is a difficult and oftentimes very, very controversial process. The growth of this tournament has been explosive. From 16 teams to 64 teams today, with 30 automatic berths by virtue of their conference championships, and 34 at-large bids from the best of the remaining Division I schools. So far, there are 15 teams in the tournament. Teams like Cornell, LaSalle, even Bradley with Hersey Hawkins, North Texas State, Loyola Marymount from out west. The last group sitting on the fence is also very important. Teams like Wichita State, Stanford, New Mexico. They will indeed test the mettle of Chair Arnie Farron and his group. This year, there is an added problem that could complicate the seedings. 4 conference championships will be taking place even as the brackets are being announced. Since the outcome of these games could determine a team's status, the committee might have to arrange for some either-or scenarios. How are the teams selected? Well, there is a ratings performance index. That's one component. It is comprised on a team's won-loss record, their opponent's schedule, and the opponent's record. Then the intangibles. Teams playing in regions of natural interest, competitive balance in each region, avoiding having conference foes meet before the regional finals, peaking teams, teams that are hot and teams that are not, and finally there are special situations. BYU chooses not to play on Sunday in compliance with church policy. Also here this weekend is the 9-member women's committee. The women's tournament has 40 teams. There are first-round byes, and first and second-round games will be played on the home court of the higher-seeded team. But the women are looking to avoid this by expanding their field in the future.
Well, I'm hopeful, Tim, that next year's tournament, 1989, will be a 48-team field. I really thought that we had a legitimate shot at expanding the tournament field to 48 for this year. We had a close vote with the executive committee, and I'm hopeful that next year you'll see 8 more teams.
So you can see that both committees are hard at work here in Kansas City. Now, for weeks there has been speculation as to the #1 seed in this region or that region. But I've got an interesting statistic for you guys. Since the top seeds have been ranked and since they have had top seeds, they have made it to the Final Four only 42% of the time. Now this year, Jim, I'm not going to ask you about your alma mater, but I'm going to gloat a little bit because I think the University of Maryland's going to be in.
Well, I tell you what, Tim, that certainly helped their cause yesterday, beating Georgia Tech. Tim, thank you. We'll look forward to your reports from Kansas City this week. As a matter of fact, the pairings and seedings this year are more important than ever because every team really, James, in the tournament has a weakness. So the matchups are going to be critical this year because of the balance in the 64 teams. Let's talk regions now. First of all, the southeast region of the country. Teams that are already in the tournament. Automatic qualifiers include Tennessee Chattanooga, winner of the Southern Conference Tournament. Murray Arnold's Moccasins winning that. And North Carolina Charlotte winning the Sun Belt Conference Tournament. They are in the field of 64. Now, probables out of the southeast region of the country. James, what about them?
Jimmy, an impressive list of probables there, led by, I think, Louisville, which, of course, was a 1986 national championship team. They will be back into the NCAA tournament this year. But look at the strength of the SEC, where we expect 5 teams will probably be in the tournament. On the fence now, these are the group of teams that the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee will be wrestling with. LSU, an up-and-down season, but they're a good team. And Memphis State, with a winning record, all the more impressive when you consider that Larry Finch had to do it without 2 starters that he lost early in the season because of dealings with agents.
You know, Marshall has one of the most exciting players in college basketball this year, a guard by the name of Skip Henderson. However, that team lost in the Southern Conference Tournament semifinals. They really are on the fence right now. When we come back, look at the new beast of the East.
Welcome to March Madness. The top teams in one of the toughest conferences battle for the title of Big East semifinal on CBS Sports. Next.
While we were away in commercial, we now have our 16th automatic qualifiers. Boston University just seconds ago knocked off Niagara. That was in the finals of the ECAC North Atlantic Tournament. The coach for the Terriers of Boston University is Mike Jarvis. He was the high school coach of Patrick Ewing. So Boston University is in the field of 64, and again, that is now 16 teams that have qualified. Let's talk about the East and take a look at the rest of the teams that have already qualified for the field of 64. This is a rather large group so far. You see number 1 ranked Temple is in there after winning the Atlantic 10 tournament earlier this week, as is LaSalle and Lehigh, Fairleigh Dickinson University, and North Carolina A&T. James, probables in the East.
Well, a big field of probables here, and I think that speaks to the strength of the conferences in the East. As we take a look, again, look how dominant the ACC and Big East conferences are. North Carolina State rolling quite well. Many teams right now are afraid of Jimmy Valvano's team. You take a look at the second page of probables here. Syracuse, Georgetown University. Georgetown, even though they lost in the first round of the Big East, they will more than likely be a probable. Now, on the fence there, a team each from the Big East and the ACC. Maryland University, as Timmy Brandt mentioned, they had the 6th strongest schedule in the country, and with that victory over 18th ranked Georgia Tech, they ought to be in there, I believe.
I tell you, St. John's may have really lost its opportunity last night, squandering an 8-point lead in the final 2.5 minutes to Villanova. I don't think the Redmen will be in the field of 64. One of the dominant teams in the East, and a squad some say could also be dominant in the tournament, is Pittsburgh. The Panthers were a top 10 team all year, and as Bill Raftery reports, it's all due to a coach who came over from the Navy and has continued to make waves.
Back in 1984, the Big East claimed a national championship as Patrick Ewing led Georgetown to victory. A year later, the Cinderella squad from Villanova stunned the basketball world as Rolly Massimino played Godfather to a miraculous upset in the All-Big East tournament final. And last year, Syracuse, after eliminating Providence in the national semifinals, came within 1 basket of capturing a tournament championship against Indiana.
A few years ago, the city of Pittsburgh entered into a revitalization program. And soon after, the University of Pittsburgh basketball program joined the city in that renaissance by hiring a head coach, Paul Evans, to lead them into the elite of the Big East.
A lot of guys can coach basketball. A lot of people who know the X's and O's. You know, that's one of the things, obviously, you look for. But the first thing you look for is intelligence and integrity. And if you don't have those two by the time you're 40 years old, nobody's going to teach you those things. And we felt that in Paul we had those 2 items in full measure.
No one ever questioned Paul Evans' integrity, but there were many eyebrows raised when he decided to pick up anchor before David Robinson's senior year at the academy. But when opportunity knocked, Evans felt compelled to answer.
I liked it at Navy, liked it very much. I had the program moving in the right direction where we wanted to be, and I would have stayed there forever. Or I had to leave. It was a situation, I'm either going to stay there now forever, or I'm going to get out and make that next step where I have a chance to compete for the Final Four or top 10 year in, year out.
It's been a learning experience for not only myself, but for the whole team. When he came in, you know, we heard all the rumors about what type of person he was and the different things that he did with the players at the Naval Academy. And he pretty much did the same things here.
One similarity was Evans' refusal to be intimidated by powerful and popular coaches of the Big East.
I think John probably respects what I stood for, because it wasn't a personal thing with John. It was what John gets away with. And if I could get away with the same things, I'd probably try. So I think John probably respects that. And Rolly and I think we'll iron things out. Everybody else, we all get along just fine.
Evans will also do whatever he thinks it takes to communicate his message to the players.
The intensity wasn't there, and I tried to parallel with a starter in a sprint, that you have to have the adrenaline flowing, you have to be ready to go, and when that gun goes off, you've got to be out of there. And I had the lights out, and at the end of it, I just shot the pistol 3 or 4 times, and I think Demetrius thought I shot Jerome.
When the lights came back on, everybody was pretty much still on the floor. Demetrius had his hands over his head. As a matter of fact, I think one of the players made a comment like somebody thought one of the players shot the coach or something.
Fortunately for the Pitt basketball team, there was no blood, but plenty of gore. Demetrius Gore, who gladly takes a bad rap. Sean Miller is another performer. At age 13, he did his magic on Johnny Carson's stage. Then there's Mr. Pitt basketball, Charles Smith, possibly the Big East Player of the Year. And Jerome Lane adds a touch of glass. The powerful junior forward led the nation in rebounding last year, and once again, he's collected hordes of boards.
Jerome's a great guy to play for because he's a warrior. You know, in the game, I have more faith in him than anybody.
It was usually like 1 or 2 players were the key of this ball club, but I think it's narrowing down to just one. I think Jerome is going to be the key to how far we go.
In the 70s, it was the home of champions. But this decade has seen the decline of the Steelers and the mediocrity of the Pirates. Both are rebuilding, but it's Pitt's basketball that's leading the Steel City back into the winning lane. Bill Raftery, CBS Sports.
You know, undeniably, this Pittsburgh team has a lot of personalities. But the amazing thing to me about Pitt this year is how far they have gone with an entirely freshman backcourt.
I thought it was kind of interesting to see the humor that these coaches in the Big East display. Can you imagine what the case would be if Bill Raftery was still coaching?
You can only imagine.
Hey, Seton Hall is one of the surprise teams around the country. They'll be coming up in the Big East semifinal later on against Syracuse, and we'll check in with Brent and Billy to find out what's coming up in Madison Square Garden after these messages from your local station.
Irascible, inconsolable, unrepentant, uncontrollable, vocal and violent, anything but silent this night. Coach Bob Knight of the Indiana Hoosiers with a big game this afternoon. Some say his team is not in the tournament yet. I think personally the Hoosiers will be in the field of 64. Nonetheless, Iowa and Indiana, you'll see it today starting at 4 o'clock Eastern time, that Big Ten matchup. Let's talk about teams now from the Midwest already in the field. And you will see among this list includes Purdue. The automatic bid from the Big Ten comes out of the regular season champion, and the Boilermakers, of course, won that. So Purdue is in there along with Bradley, Southwest Missouri State, North Texas State, and Southern University. Probables, James, out of the Midwest.
Midwest looking strong again, Jim, led by one of the teams that has one of the most devastating offenses around in Oklahoma. The Sooners, awfully impressive. Illinois is peaking. Timmy Brand talked about teams peaking down the stretch. Illinois is certainly one of those teams. If you take a look at it, Xavier, they're doing well again. Byron Larkin seems to love it once tournament time approaches, and he's got his team playing well. Teams on the fence. Look for one of these two Southwest Conference teams, that is Arkansas and Baylor, to make it into the NCAA tournament.
And Ohio State certainly helped its cause with that win over Purdue earlier this week. All right, that's the Midwest, but coming up we have, of course, Big East semifinal action. Seton Hall against Syracuse. The Pirates winners yesterday over Georgetown. And calling the game, of course, Brent Musburger and Billy Packer. Let's go to the Garden right now.
It's a beautiful day here in Manhattan. We're today inside Madison Square Garden. The best of the Big East meets as we get a step closer to their tournament championship. The Orangemen of Syracuse, the Seton Hall Pirates, the Pitt Panthers, and the Villanova Wildcats are still alive to claim the title of Big East champion. And it'll all unfold here this afternoon in the Garden. Game 1, Seton Hall against Syracuse. Now, yesterday, the Pirates became the Cinderella of this Big East tournament by eliminating the Hoyas. They became only the second team in the history of this young conference to ever beat the Hoyas in a tournament game. Syracuse, the other. Jaron Jackson missed the three that would have sent it to overtime. P.J. Carlissimo takes Seton Hall to the semis for the first time in the history of the school. Later this afternoon, Pittsburgh will take on Villanova. Then the two winners will meet tomorrow for the championship. Billy Packer, Seton Hall, the story. What about this team?
Well, they are a great story, and I think they scared
the death out of everybody in this league. They have a great front line. They're a ball club now that has solidified their backcourt, and I think P.J. Carlesimo is a great story, Brent. A fellow who is under a great deal of pressure at the campus, has worked 5 years to put this team together, and it's a legitimate ball club that I think can beat Syracuse and go a long way.
The first person to tell me they were going to go to the NCAA and watch out, James Brown. Let's go back to James.
All right, Brent, thank you very much. And, Jimmy, you notice I detected a little bit of enthusiasm in Brent's voice. That's because he picked Seton Hall to win the Big East tournament.
And it's even more impressive when you consider he made that pick prior to the Georgetown game. It was third seed against the sixth seed, so a good pick there.
Well, all right, there's something new in this year's tournament. All players must sign an affidavit stating that they have not signed with an agent. It's part of an effort to clean up the college athletic atmosphere, which in recent years has been poisoned by growing numbers of unscrupulous agents.
If you want to sign a kid these days, you're going to pay him cash, because if you don't pay him cash, you're not going to compete and you're not going to get him. The sports world and the sports media in this country better wake up, because they don't realize what's going on.
Jim Abernathy, while doing business as a, quote, sports agent, close quote.
Well, the real world woke up last week. Jim Abernathy was convicted of tampering with a sports event. His crime, paying college athletes. His sentence, the maximum, 1 year in jail. Sports agent Norby Walters faces similar charges.
Most of the agents choose to ignore the rules of the NCAA, which they are not bound by. And most of the young men seem to ignore the rules of the NCAA. And what Norby Walters has done has just come along and joined the gang.
The NCAA is trying to break up the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
If somebody signs the affidavit and we find later that they have signed with an agent, and that the agent has coerced them or has encouraged them to sign this, that we can take legal action against the player as well as the agent as a co-conspirator.
The Norby Walters of the world have left a scar on the college game. Last year, Derek McKee admitted taking $2,500 from Walters. As a result, McKee lost his eligibility, and Alabama had to relinquish $250,000 tournament money back to the NCAA.
I resent the NCAA saying that what we should have done was monitored it more. I did everything I possibly could to counsel these youngsters before it happened, and we did not know about it. And for them to take their money away from us based on that is absolutely ridiculous.
They pick on the kids from usually poor homes, ghetto kids, and they'll lay $5,000 to $10,000 on the table in front of the mother. It's rough for the kid to say no. They lock them up. Either they sign them to a contract then, or they post-date it until a time when the kid's eligible for the draft.
The Seattle Supersonics select Derek McKee from the University of Alabama.
Derek McKee says he could have waited until after his senior year for the big money, but that $2,500 was just too hard to turn down.
I guess money just to have in case of maybe an emergency or whatever. You know, I think it's kind of a standard of once you get in college or whatever, you know, trying to, you know, I would say trying to keep up with the other students or whatever, try to stay on the same level or whatever, but you just want to be comfortable.
I think it's terribly wrong to recruit a young fellow. Look at the John Williams case down in Louisiana, who's now playing in Cleveland, where he had a child and he had a wife, and he had no money. I mean, how is he going to go to school and live? How do they expect him to go to school and live with a bunch of kids, like my kids, for example, who I'm giving money to go while they're going out of school? How do they expect this fellow to live if they don't give him anything?
The better the player, the greater the temptation will be. Agents will be all over the J.R. Reeds and the Ronnie Cycles, and they will not go away.
A few have sent me a sheet where they talk about their companies, and at the end of the sheet they say, well, this is our company, and if you'd like to sign, you can sign. But as soon as they sent me that sheet, I put that agency in the trash can.
You can talk to all the players. I've done it 20 times. Tell the players, don't bother with the agents, and the season's over. We'll sit down, we'll pick 3 of them out, get your folks to listen to all 3, and as soon as you play the last game, you talk to the kids. I got an agent.
Now, we don't mean to imply that all agents are bad, that is, because they aren't. But as the money has grown, so have the number of agents. 20 years ago, there were maybe 2 or 3 so-called sports agents. This year, the NBA Players Association has 225 registered agents. Now, that's remarkable when you realize that there are only 276 players in the entire league.
So you got as many agents as you do players. You know, with last year's drug testing policy being instituted into the tournament, this year's new ruling on the agents, tournament seems to be getting more and more complex, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
It is, Jimmy, and I tell you, as far as the players are concerned, I think there ought to be a bigger pool of money, regulated pool of money available for these players so they can draw on in times of need.
Well, James, we have to get to the West region. That's the one left as we continue on the road to the Final Four. We'll talk about the Wild West when we return. In the past, recently, when it came to ironing out what teams belong in the tournament and what regions should be represented, the West was always the weak link. But that's a different story this year, as you well know. So far, only one team has received a bid because a lot of tournaments are still in progress. That is Loyola Marymount. That's a very interesting team coached by the former Lakers coach Paul Westhead. And they had a fabulous regular season, won their postseason tournament. And Loyola Marymount is in the field of 64. Let's talk probables, though, James, from the West, and take a look at that list.
Well, when you talk about strong teams from the West, you have to talk about Arizona, the unquestioned class of the West. UNLV and BYU both lost in their respective league tournaments last night, but of course they will be in the NCAA tournament. Taking a look at teams on the fence, expect one of these two Pac-10 teams, Stanford and Oregon State, to be in the NCAA tournament along with Arizona.
You know, one of those teams listed on the fence, Cal Santa Barbara, coached by Jerry Pym. That's a team that beat UNLV twice this year, James, and also knocked off the Wolfpack of North Carolina State by 18. So that should be considered, I'm sure it will, when they start talking about strength of schedule and quality of opponents. You know, we've already mentioned Arizona. For the past 3 years, the Wildcats have made the tournament only to be skinned in the first round. In fact, that's the kind of a state of tradition right now, one which Gary Paul Gates tells us Arizona would like to change this time around.
It has become a pattern. Every 12 years, a native son of Arizona comes riding out of the desert and into the arena of presidential politics. This year it was Bruce Babbitt, an early casualty. Back in 1976, Morris Udall tried his luck. And before him, of course, there was Barry Goldwater.
Goldwater, Udall, and Babbitt have one thing in common. They were all losers in the presidential sweepstakes. And that, alas, has been the story of the University of Arizona's basketball team. Out here in the desert, the cactus may grow as high as an elephant's eye, but the college basketball program has been strictly small fry.
But all that began to change 5 years ago when the school persuaded Lute Olson to leave Iowa and coach the Wildcats. Lute was no loser, and he soon brought the sweet smell of success to Arizona.
There are a number of things that have to go into turning a program around. I think the first one is a very obvious one. You better get out and recruit some players who can play.
The Wildcats have played so well this season that they've been at or near the top of the national polls all winter. And the two players who led them to that peak are the gifted Sean Elliott and veteran point guard Steve Kerr. Kerr had to sit out last season because of a career-threatening knee injury, and that was not his first brush with adversity. 4 years ago, his father, the president of the American University in Lebanon, was killed by terrorists. It was a wrenching loss for young Steve, and even in the midst of this great comeback season, echoes from that tragedy returned to haunt him. When the Wildcats played at Arizona State a few weeks ago, some hecklers had the appalling bad taste to chant, PLO, PLO.
There were a few fans in the stands who were before the game were shouting insults about my father, which was basically a very sick thing to do. I mean, and it shook me up.
It also fired him up. Kerr responded to the taunts by scoring 20 points in the first half. Arizona's glorious season has come at a time when the state needed a lift to counter the antics of its disgraced governor, Evan Meekum, who is facing an impeachment trial, criminal indictment, and a recall election. And no one appreciates that contrast more than the woman who's now the acting governor.
I think one of the greatest things that's happened to Arizona is acquiring Lute Olson at the University of Arizona as the basketball coach.
But neither Governor Moffett nor Meekum can claim the credit for helping to bring Lute Olson to Arizona. That happened on the watch of another governor.
The president of the University of Arizona called me up several years back and said, we're looking for a guy named Lute Olson, the University of Iowa. Would you make a phone call and help us recruit him? And I did.
That was good news for Arizona, but bad news for Bruce Babbitt. When he took his campaign for president to Iowa this year, he had to explain to voters there why Arizona took away their Lute.
The point I made is, look, we really needed him. And look how well you've done with his successor. You have a strong program. You could afford to give a little bit to Arizona.
What was the reaction when you said that?
Never too enthusiastic.
Now let's go into detail the story on the Democratic side. It may be sayonara for Bruce Babbitt of Arizona. We'll have to see.
It was sayonara. And did Olson's departure from Iowa cause the defeat?
I doubt that my presence in Iowa before had much to do with that, the results.
That's easy enough for you to say, Coach, but Governor Babbitt knows better.
Except for Lute Olson, I'd be president of the United States.
We just hope the fans in Arizona appreciate this noble sacrifice. For greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his political life for an NCAA championship. For CBS Sports, I'm Gary Paul Gates.
Taking place today around the country, as Jim Nance mentioned just a few minutes ago, the newest team in the NCAA tournament, Boston University. The Terriers knocked off Niagara 79-68 to win the ECAC North Atlantic tournament. And in an SEC semifinal game, LSU is playing Kentucky. Kentucky is losing by 5. Of course, LSU, one of those teams that we mentioned earlier, is on the fence. They're trying to clinch it by winning their own tournament. And in a Big Ten regular season finale, Purdue, of course, already in the tournament. They beat Minnesota 64-50.
Boy, can you believe Dale Brown, his team comes into the SEC tournament with 12 losses, really has to win the tournament to get in, or at least a good showing today, and they're doing it once again, leading there over Kentucky. All right, coming up next, we have Seton Hall and Syracuse semifinal action in the Big East. Brent Musburger, Billy Packer will have the call. Following that game, we'll be back here with the latest on the tournament, and at 4 Eastern today, it's Iowa against Indiana. For right now, good so long from New York. We'll see you at halftime.
To Madison Square Garden. It's Big East showdown time here. The first of 2 semifinals. Cinderella, if you will. The Pirates of Seton Hall against Syracuse. Seton Hall upset the Hoyas to get here yesterday. For the first time, this school will play in the semifinal of this tournament. Later today, it'll be Pittsburgh against Villanova. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Brent Musburger. Syracuse, if you will, has appeared more times on network television this fall than, well, Johnny Carson. As for Seton Hall, never in the school's history have they played live on one of the 3 major networks. But here they are this afternoon. Let's meet their star. He's 6'9" center Mark Bryant. He grew up in the shadow of this New Jersey school, about 10 minutes from the campus, which is located just outside Newark. He has averaged better than 20 points a game and pulled down almost 10 rebounds. Yet very few people know about Mark Bryant.
I'm definitely the Roger Dangerfield. I don't get no respect, but, you know, I just keep working hard for it. And
6'7", 243, has that gentle touch. Seems to brush the iron. 6'7", 243, the body of a bricklayer and the touch of a cellist.
Hey, that's good. That's real good, Mark.
I'm sorry. That was stolen also, I want you to know. And Manuel has hit 2 straight to open up the second half. 42-39, LSU by 3. The steal by Manuel. It is down to a 1-point LSU lead.
Eric Manuel, a freshman, and a child shall lead them. Coming out of the blocks, Kentucky turning up the defense several notches, although I'm surprised they haven't come down the floor with more pressure.
Early pass from Ricky Blatt has 8, and LSU now leads 44-41.
Just of some controversy, the McCoy-Archer combination.
Well, you know, McCoy's a good shooter. A lot of people think that he's more a point guard than he is a second guard. Mentioning that, King Rice now playing a point and Lebo the second guard for North Carolina.
Lewis too strong, but also fouled by Scott Williams. That's the second on Williams, the 16th foul against North Carolina. Dean Smith, boy, what a career. 7 consecutive Sweet 16s. Somehow that gets lost in the shuffle because they haven't won an ACC tournament title since '82, which was when they won the national championship, Smith's first.
Well, they have a different mentality now at North Carolina. They have it at Kentucky, at the great programs, Indiana. Sweet 16 really doesn't mean a thing, Tim. What they want is the gold. And if you're not getting to the Final Four, there's some people begin to get a little little bit unhappy. But I'll tell you one thing. Check his record out. It's amazing. And then the thing I like about Dean is innovative things. The four corners, the run and jump, the huddle, the mass substitutions, the motion game. These are all the things that he's innovated in his coaching career. A Hall of Famer, and I promise Valvano, I wouldn't call him Michelangelo more than 10 times today. But he is the Michelangelo of coaching. Eat your heart out, James T. Valvano.
Well, you managed to give Smith the vowel-ending nickname.
A great play. They trap Ramos in the corner. Morton gets it to the open man, who's Cooper, and Cycling with a strong defensive play tracks it down. Douglas comes back now to half court.
That's Cycling's second or third block. We saw Charlie Smith from Pittsburgh block 7 last night. No perimeter game whatsoever for Syracuse so far, and that's really hurting them.
Here's Morton off the dribble. He travels. Take a look at the Seton Hall bench there, folks. I tell you, this is the first team I've ever seen with more assistant coaches than the Alabama football team.
And not a priest among them. That's very unusual for a Catholic team up here in the East.
I think we have 9 schools in the Big East, Billy, and 6 of them are Catholic.
They normally have a father or 2 over there with the rosaries.
Inside to Thompson with that nice delayed jump shot of his, kind of leaning back with the left hand. Cross, they want Cooper. Through the foul on Cycling. That's his second. And the team's third.
Jimmy Boeheim is
giving the Wildcats of Kentucky a 2-point lead.
Boy, he was eyeball to eyeball with Jose Vargas, too. That was in your face.
Blanton, Vargas, Woodside looking down low. Last touch by LSU. Trying to find Sims, but off the mark. It will be Kentucky ball. Timeout called by LSU with 37 seconds remaining in the second half, and Kentucky with a 2-point lead. Man of the game, 23 for Bennett, 22 for Manuel. Chapman with 20 off the late rush. Davender with 11. While LSU, led by Darryl Joe with 23, 18 of the 23 in the first half, 16 for Vargas, 14 for Blanton, 14 for Sims.
Bernard Woodside with 9 assists today, too. Just an outstanding day.
Chant of LSU urging the Tigers on. It's Kentucky ball. They have 37 seconds. And Chapman is fouled by Woodside. So the quick foul given by Bernard Woodside.
His third personal, team foul number 6.
And that is team foul number 6 on LSU, so they have another foul.
And they'll do it again quickly. Reluctantly, they're going to have to foul one of those guards, because you better believe they're the only 2 that are going to handle it.
Kentucky is already over the foul limit. Davender had trouble getting it in, and Manuel very close to a travel. Dale Brown wanted the call, but he was fouled by Joe, number 4 on Joe, and now LSU is over the limit. So Eric Manuel, who has had a magnificent afternoon, an 81% free throw shooter, 1 for 1 today, will go to the line on the 1+1.
Crucial here, a date with destiny for the young man. Without him, Kentucky's not in this spot, no question.
33 seconds left in regulation. And Kentucky by 3, 83-80. Eric Manuel from Macon, Georgia, considered one of the nation's top prospects last year. He had a big game against LSU earlier in the season in Lexington, and very coolly
Kentucky, the Wildcats 84, LSU 80.
Timeout called with 33 seconds remaining. There's Blanton. Tigers need a quick shot. Out of 20 seconds. Woodside able to keep it along. No, he stepped out. He was out of bounds. It will be Kentucky ball with 13 seconds to go.
A major test for that man. He's created some miracles in March, but with 13 seconds down floor and Kentucky with the ball, the heavens really have to open up. A gallant a gallant effort today by LSU. Kentucky's just better.
And Davender hit by Sims with 11 seconds remaining in regulation. And Davender, good free throw shooter. He's 86% on the season.
Winston Bennett, a big key to the second half for Kentucky. A real warrior, a guy who doesn't get a lot of credit, and as you pointed out earlier, just had a tremendous rehabilitation problem to come back from major knee surgery.
Here's Davender, who hit some key baskets here in the second half. 11 points for Davender, 8 of the 11 in the second half. Ed Davender, a senior from Brooklyn, Kentucky's most valuable player a year ago.
Doesn't get nearly as much ink as Rex Chapman, but he is a player and a senior.
Kentucky. Here's Joe from three-point range. 3 seconds remaining. And again, the foul is called. Sims picks it up. That is his fourth.
Sutton not ready to throw in the towel, still mopping his brow. He had to work for this one. Dale Brown had his team ready, came out running, took advantage of cold Kentucky shooting in the first half. But the Cats came back after intermission. The defense much improved, and they found Winston Bennett inside, and LSU could not then handle the establishment of the inside game to go with perfect three-point shooting.
Woodside fires it in desperation as Kentucky defeats LSU by the score of 86-80. Eric Manuel, the high man with 24, Winston Bennett at 23. LSU led by Darryl Joe with 23 points. The executive producer of NBC Sports is Michael Weissman. The coordinating producer of NBC Basketball is George Finkel. Today's game produced by Kenneth Roy Edmondson and directed by Dick Klein. The story of this game, the Wildcats turned it in the second half. They outscored LSU 51-40 after trailing by 5 at halftime, and they did it despite the problems. The backcourt men, Chapman and Davender, had shooting in the first half, a combined only 5 for 18, and Bennett and Manuel just took over in the second half. A reminder, tomorrow on NBC Sports, more exciting basketball action, the finals of the Atlantic Coast Conference basketball tournament. That'll be at 1 o'clock Eastern Time tomorrow. Now, stay tuned for the final match of the DuPont Tennis Classic, followed by the third round of the Honda Golf Classic. That's all right here on NBC.
Back into the tournament, they were the champions, of course, in 1986. Keith Williams beats the press in the pass to Mike Abram to Herbert Crook. Crook over to Purvis Ellison, and he jams this one down as Louisville simply had no problem in the game. 89-57. They blow away the Gamecocks in this one and roll that in the Metro Conference semifinals, so they'll go on to the finals. Meanwhile, LSU met Kentucky, this in the Southeastern Conference, and LSU had a 5-point lead at the half, but boy, was that tough to hang on to, as you'll find out in just a moment. Kentucky, the Wildcats, of course, a top 10 team. LSU trying to get into the tournament. Darryl Joe had 18 in the first half. Bernard Woodside to Joe for a three-pointer. Joe then steals from Rex Chapman and goes all the way for the layup. Takes it away. Dale Brown's team led by 5 at the half. They're looking ahead to the second half. Darryl Joe again drives, but Rob Locke is there to come up with a rejection, take the ball away. Ahead to Eric Manuel, who goes in for showtime and stuffs it down. A bit later, Winston Bennett gets the roll on a toughie and the foul as well. A three-point play as he leans in. 49-48, Wildcats are up. Kentucky then went on a 12-2 run, highlighted by who else but Rex Chapman and his three-point bombs. LSU does hang tough. Woodside hits a three-pointer of his own, and the score is all tied up at 80 apiece late in the game, about a minute and a half left. But Locke hits the turnaround and put the Wildcats up for keeps. They score the last 6 points of the game and go on to the victory. 86-80 is the final. The Kentucky Wildcats knock off LSU on LSU's home floor. What this likely means is LSU will not make it into the tournament. Let's take a look and see how Kentucky got to the finals of the SEC. First of all, Florida faced Tennessee. Florida a winner there. Auburn and Georgia. Florida and Georgia will meet later. LSU knocked off Vanderbilt, and they needed the win against Kentucky, as Kentucky had beaten Mississippi, rather. But Kentucky gets the victory.
Stevie Thompson realizes where he is. There he is.
Back to Ramos. Walker couldn't get it to stay down and rushed it just a little bit, and it's going to go over to Syracuse. They can run it out here. They'll have to put him on the line. 43 seconds, the home run pass to Thompson.
Got a foul.
Not the man they want to foul is Douglas, but they do. Morton reaches in on him, and he fouls out of the game.
Just don't go for this at all. Now, do we have a timeout?
It's got a foul, so they're huddled over there.
But the referees have got to stop this nonsense.
This is a John.
Tomorrow, we'll meet the winner of the Kansas-Kansas State game to be played later today. Merle Harmon, Dave Logan, and Ron Thulin with you at Kemper Arena. As these two teams, great rivals, have split the two games played earlier this year. Now Oklahoma with the big edge, and Grant driving for the layup is going to be fouled by Nathan Bunton, and Grant will go to the line. Harvey Grant, certain to be a first-round selection in the NBA draft, 18 points for the game.
Grant and King that time actually doing a little full-court pressing on their own. And because Mookie Blaylock comes up with another steal, Grant's on the other end for the long pass and resulting two free throws.
Oklahoma, with 80 points on the board in 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go, has scored over 100 points in 16 games this year. High mark was 152. They scored 99 yesterday in a win over Colorado in the first round. 19 points for Harvey Grant.
You know, Billy Tubbs has come under criticism throughout the course of his coaching career. I don't think that it actually bothers him. But you've got to say one thing about Tubbs. He gets these kids in great shape. He plays 5 and 6 players. They full court pressure the entire game. They don't stop running, and they don't look tired.
Oklahoma 82-67 over Missouri. In the previous meetings,
Puerto Rico here this afternoon. 21 points, 4 rebounds. He played an extremely intelligent game, too, after Bryant got into foul trouble. He really played a couple of roles down on the inside. I can see why the Puerto Rican team really wants that big fella and hopes to have him lead them all the way to Korea in the Olympics.
You know, that Puerto Rican league that he plays in the summertime, where PJ coached, one of the most competitive leagues in the world. It's run a lot of coaches out of there, including guys like Jack Ramsey that were down there, Paul Westhead, Jack McKinney. A lot of Philadelphia coaches used to go down there in the summer.
Into the hands of the quarterback, and Wigginton puts him on the line. 23 seconds to go, and you know, Billy Jim Boeheim, it's like a Harry Houdini team over there.
Well, I'm sure that he's not happy with this performance. You always want to advance in a tournament. But you talked about driving the fans crazy. How about Jim Boeheim?
Well, he was already crazy.
This is why he loves to play golf. Occasionally he can get away from these guys.
Carlissimo still coaching away here with 23 seconds, and he's had a great year. He'll be going to the NCAA tournament, the field of 64, even if they lose this one.
You know what he reminds me of? Remember in grade school, they used to show you pictures of guys like DeSoto and Vasco da Gama with those beards. He reminds me of one of those fellas.
Wigginton's 3, and there was a foul down on the bench that goes against Seton Hall, and that's number 5 against Bryant.
Sherman Douglas looked over here and just started shaking his head, smiling at me like, can you believe this thing?
Fouled by Mark Bryant. That's his 5th personal foul. Foul by Mark Bryant.
Been a long day for that man.
He played 19 minutes.
Well, down the stretch, he'd been averaging way short. Oh, what a pass.
This is going to do it. Syracuse a winner. They'll go to the final again, and P.J. Carlissimo, nothing to be ashamed of. He'll go to the field of 64.
Welcome back to Studio 45 in New York. Jim Nance along with James Brown as we continue on the road to the Final Four, trying to get you caught up on where the picture is right now for the NCAA tournament field of 64. A reminder, coming up in just a few minutes, 4 o'clock Eastern time, that Big Ten battle, Iowa against Indiana. Some are saying the Hoosiers need a win today to secure a spot in that field of 64. At Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Indiana, is our Vern Lundquist, who will be calling the game in just a few minutes. Vern, what's happening there?
All right, Jimmy, we've got 17,000 plus filling into Assembly Hall here on the campus of the University of Indiana in Bloomington. They are here for the final Big Ten regular season game, Iowa against Illinois. Both teams chasing Purdue. They can't catch them. Purdue has won the Big Ten. But there is something at stake, and Bob Knight talked about it.
If we can play it well, it's a nice end to the season. It's a season that's had some frustrating moments, but by and large, it's been a season where we have, I think, been very competitive. We've beaten some good teams. We've lost to some good teams. We've had some growth with some of our players, and we're in a position where hopefully the season will be extended, and then we've got another chance to see what we can do there. But it's always nice to wind up a season, and particularly when you wind it up at home on a good note.
Bobby Knight, if one assumes, and I think Tommy Heinsohn and I both do, that these two teams are in the field of 64, then how important is this particular game, Tom?
Well, to me, it's pretty important because no coach wants to go into a tournament on a losing note. It's very important for both ball clubs to try and keep their confidence. That's a tough assignment. But more importantly for the coaches, they want a good seeding in the tournament so they can play a soft touch.
Well, it won't be a soft touch today. It's Iowa against Indiana here at Assembly Hall in Bloomington. Right now, back to New York and James Brown.
All right, Vern, and we certainly look forward to that game coming up a little later on here on CBS. But there's some other scores to bring you up to date on. In the SEC semifinals in a game between Georgia and Florida, Georgia is leading by 5 in the first half, but the story there, a fight. And as you recall, Leslie Visser just talked about that in an earlier story. Take a look as Alec Kessler in the dark uniform for Georgia throws the first punch at Ronnie Montgomery of Florida, and it really gets very ugly and nasty at that point. Referee Louis Grillo does a good job of tackling Kessler to keep it from escalating any further. Both players were thrown out of that game. Again, Georgia is leading that one by 5, that one in the first half. In the ACC semifinals, the Magic ends for Maryland as they lose by 10 to North Carolina. J.R. Reed, a big game, 19 points and 12 rebounds. In the Big 8 semifinals, Missouri losing to Oklahoma in the second half. The score there, 90-83. The Oklahoma juggernaut still rolling along. In the Metro semifinals, Louisville cranking up for the tournament. Impressive win, 89-57 over South Carolina. Louisville now moves to the Metro finals. And in the SEC, Kentucky, they will play in the SEC finals. They beat LSU 86-80. Notre Dame playing Dayton out there in college basketball in the Midwest. Notre Dame leading that one 62-52, that game in the second half. DePaul Marquette. DePaul is leading that game 76-65, that one late in the second half as well. Boston University earlier today became the 16th team into the NCAA tournament by way of an automatic bid. They beat Niagara 79-68. Mike Jarvis directing the traffic there. Purdue, the regular season Big Ten champion, a big win over Minnesota 93-66. Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten. The score there, Michigan leading by 20 points, 73-53.
All right, James, with 6 minutes left in that game, Ohio State really needed the win today. That team is 16-11 and in serious jeopardy of being left out of the tournament with this loss today. All right, we'll continue on the road to the Final Four. Who covers basketball for Sports Illustrated, tells us he's the latest in a line of freshmen who have soared to the head of the class.
The 1980s have seen freshmen play a huge role in the NCAA tournament. In '82, it was Michael Jordan weaving his drama for North Carolina. 2 years ago, Louisville's Purvis Ellison was the leading man in the Cardinals' flight to the national title. And then last season, Syracuse rookie Derek Coleman helped carry the Orangemen to a runner-up finish. This year, Philadelphia, the city of young as well as brotherly love, is the home of the #1 team and the best freshman in all the land.
Acres of diamonds, the concept by which Temple University was founded in 1884. In other words, the common man, the average person, could find diamonds of knowledge right here in inner city Philadelphia. Now, 104 years later, the Temple basketball team has found a diamond of its own. He is Mark Macon, the gem of the freshman class.
Everything that he does it with some degree of what we call a success pattern. It is well focused in what he wants to do.
Macon is a product of Buena Vista High in Saginaw, Michigan, where Coach Norwayne Reed ran a discipline program similar to Cheney's. It's the primary reason he chose Temple, and why his adjustment has been such a smooth one.
What makes Mark Macon is his work ethic. He comes out hard to practice, he comes out with total concentration, and he's a player that will listen to you.
There was times when I would come to practice and I'd be loafing, and I'd turn around, I'd see Mark huffing and puffing. That just made me just want to work a little bit harder because I'm a senior, he's a freshman.
That intensity has propelled the Owls to a 29-1 record, including a 17-point victory over North Carolina at Chapel Hill that stunned the nation, and another over city rival Villanova, in which Macon put on a show as dazzling in its maturity as in its execution.
His composure is the thing that I'm most impressed with. The way he holds it throughout the entire game. It makes no difference. He plays the same way.
He's just a great basketball player, and he plays well. He has a good head on his shoulders, and he's very mature, very polite. Yes, sir, no, sir. And he's a breath of fresh air.
Because of all of Mark's accolades, Cheney has seen fit to restrict his freshmen from talking to the media. And wouldn't you know it, Macon has taken that policy right onto the court.
The other night, the official told him that he had refed his game for about 5 games now. He never heard him say a word. Could he just say hello or something like that? But he said hello, and that was it.
For now, Mark Macon's game alone speaks volumes. His talent so extraordinary, even the wise old coach salutes his Owl prodigy.
We tend to write in his number quite a lot in utilizing his ability, and ultimately forgetting the fact that he is an 18-year-old, but nevertheless, he has the talent.
30 years ago, Temple reached the Final Four under this man, Harry Litwack, who it was said did more with less than any coach in basketball history. Now, in a role reversal, Temple is #1, but it remains to be seen whether Mark Macon can lead the Owls back again to the Final Four. For CBS Sports, this is Curry Kirkpatrick.
All right, I tell you, you talk about Mark Macon. All the raw ingredients are certainly there, Jimmy, but many people may not remember that John Cheney was a very tenacious guard himself, and he has helped Mark Macon grow up very quickly.
All right, Iowa and Indiana coming up next. We'll see you back here at halftime. For James Brown, Jim Nance saying so long for right now. Iowa. All right, tomorrow at 5:30 Eastern Time, it's the time when the NCAA tournament selection process will take place. You'll see the show right here on CBS. And, of course, the man on the hot seat right now is Arnie Farron, head of the selection committee, and he's in Kansas City right now with our man, Tim Brandt. Tim?
Thank you, Jim. The NCAA Division Men's Selection Committee has been deliberating since 8 o'clock this morning. And taking a break with us now is Arnie Farron. And, Arnie, we want to thank you for taking that break. But before we get to business, let's have a little bit of fun. I want to take you back in your storied college basketball past to show the nation what kind of player you were. Let's take a look.
The camera highlights in the world of sports. Utah's Arnold Farron, number 22, stages a one-man assault on the Indian cage. His shot arches neatly through the cords. Farron again. This lad is somebody to watch. 18 years old, 6 feet 3.5 inches from floor to top, and he makes every inch count. There he goes again. Off the sideline, looks like a mourner's bench. Farron again. And there he tallies another Utah field goal.
All right, congratulations on being named yesterday to the WAC Court of Honors, which is equivalent to that conference's Hall of Fame.
Congratulate my wife, who was there to receive the honor for me.
All right, let's talk about the selection committee, and I know you've been meeting since 8 o'clock this morning. How far along are you? I know that 16 teams have already qualified. How many can we say are safely in?
Tim, we have 21 teams on the board for 9 places. So we've sifted out pretty well, but the crunch really comes when we try to find which of those 21 will fit the 9 spots.
Now, I would assume matters are complicated a great deal by 4 conferences, which will be playing their championship games tomorrow while the announcements are being made.
That will be complicated only if the 2 teams in the finals of those postseason tournaments aren't at-large candidates. And that may not happen. We will deal with it. It will muddy what we do a little bit, but we can handle it.
The Pac-10, of course, the Big 8, the Southwest, and the Metro are the conferences that we talk about. What is the temperament right now of the committee? Is it getting a little tense in there?
It is tense. It's very difficult. Everyone came prepared. They want to share the knowledge they have with the other people. Everyone feels strongly about who they should be, and now we're starting to do the hard part, sift out, and it's very difficult when you eliminate a team. You feel for the coach and the players that aren't there, and so we've got to take 21 and fit them in 9 spots. It'll take tonight and most of tomorrow.
One subject that I feel has to be addressed here is the position and the policy of the NCAA and the position the tournament is taking as to fights. We saw another ugly situation today between Georgia and Florida.
I think you've seen the officials handle it better. There were automatic ejections for fighting. We talked yesterday at great length about it. Hank Nichols says the provisions for the officials are there, but more important, the executive regulations of the NCAA provide misconduct penalties for people in our tournament that are very severe. We'll form committees at the sites to evaluate any fighting, and they will be dealt with severely.
So they'll be watching this very closely as the tournament begins and all the way through.
It's something that shouldn't happen, and we won't tolerate it in our tournament.
All right, Arnie. Thank you very much for stopping by. We look forward to being with you tomorrow when the 64 teams are announced, 5:30 Eastern Time right here in Kansas City.
I'll be here.
All right. Let's go back to New York now. Here's Jim Nance. Jim?
All right, thank you very much, Tim. 21 teams for 9 spots, he says. Indiana looking awful impressive here in the first half. 19 up on Iowa. We'll get back to the second half after this message and a word from your local station.
Trailer on that play. 4-point leads are huge in this game.
We didn't see Pittsburgh get too many of those transition baskets in the first half.
Doug West looks and answers.
It's the way to do it.
14 for Doug.
West and Plansky have been the big offensive weapons in this game for Rowley's club.
Sure have. 26 of the 42.
Eastern Conference, a close one. 15 seconds left in the game. Georgia leads Florida 70-67. Let's join Tom Hammonds and Jordy Holford.
To the finals against Kentucky. Georgia leading Florida 70-67. Neville Austin of Georgia has just fouled out of the game, and Vernon Maxwell, the Gators' senior star, will be at the line shooting 1+1. Florida has just taken a timeout. They have 2 remaining, 3 for Georgia. See that the 2 teams are good free throw shooters. Possession arrow in favor of the Georgia Bulldogs. 3-point lead for Georgia, who has done it without star Willie Anderson. Only 1 field goal today for Anderson. Maxwell has to hit the free throws, and they have to look to foul immediately. Cole is the weak link for Georgia. They take another timeout to try and freeze the veteran. I don't know if that'll work on Vernon Maxwell or not. He is, as you said, the veteran and the 2nd leading scorer in Southeastern Conference basketball history. And today at the free throw line.
15 seconds remain. It's 70-67. But right now, let's go back to the ACC. Duke and NC State in a tight battle in the semifinals.
And while we were away, John Saunders, Charles Shackelford picked up his 4th foul, so he's playing with 4 along with Chucky Brown on the NC State front line, and Duke has tied the game at 64. Bench scoring, certainly on State side in half number 2, and credit Rodney Monroe. What a game he's had.
Billy King now trying to check Monroe. What makes him special, he can drive and shoot the deep shot, so you got to respect him both on a perimeter and for the drive, and that makes it tough to stop him. Look at this. He could drive right into the gap of the defense.
Danny Ferry got a hand on it. The arrow goes with NC State off the tie ball.
Well, he beats Billy King with a good explosive first step, and then he gets stopped by Danny Ferry with a good help defensive move.
This has definitely been the premium game that we've had so far. Corciani also sitting. He's had some foul difficulty as well.
You know, a lot of people question the substitution pattern of Jimmy Valvano. Here's a perfect example. Kelsey Weems. A lot of people would say, how could he have Weems on at quality time? But they put him on a book because he has a feel for it.
NC State and Duke locked in a good one, but there's another one down in Baton Rouge. John Saunders has more.
Stay with us, gentlemen. Back to you in just a moment, but let's go back to the Southeastern Conference, Georgia and Florida.
So Cole, even though Georgia's a very good free throw shooting team, Cole at only 69% is the weak link. They may try and foul him because time is the enemy. 15 seconds left. Maxwell hits 2. It's a 1-point Georgia lead, 70-69. Well, Patton's wide open. Nobody's guarding him. Anderson runs the baseline, pitches it into Mack, and here's Willie Anderson. He's got a foul. Double team. Oh, he threw a bad pass, and the Gators will have it. Here's Maxwell. 5 seconds left. Ball's loose, and Georgia's got it. Cole somehow came up with it, and he's fouled with 2 seconds left.
Oh, Maxwell, if he had the bounce pass, if he could do it all over again, the bounce pass was there. Great defense by Mack to deflect the ball.
Georgia, the upset winner last night over Auburn, bidding to upset the Gators here. They'll be at the line with 2 seconds left and already in front by 1. Norm Sloan asking for a timeout. Well, it was a wild sequence as Florida came up with a steal. They had a chance, but they threw it away.
I'm saying they've got a foul. They come up with the steal. And watch the series of events that transpire. Here comes a deflection. Maxwell will pick it up. Now, if he can do it all over again, the bounce pass is wide open. But Anderson rather gets the deflection. So he didn't have a good offensive night, but defensively, the play of the game.
So Willie Anderson, who had an off night, actually 2 in a row in the scoring department, makes perhaps the play of the game, maybe the play of the season for the Georgia Bulldogs, who are trying a late drive to get into the championship game of this tournament and to the NCAA tournament to follow.
Cinderella still alive.
The clock has not yet struck midnight, and there are 2 seconds left in this game. Georgia lost both regular season matches against Kentucky, but played well in both games.
Well, the way Kentucky's playing, it's going to take a superb effort by whoever meets them in the championship game to dethrone the Cats, because they're really on top of their game. So I said Cole was the guy to foul. Let's see what happens.
2 seconds left in the game. Rod Cole at the line to shoot 1+1. He's a freshman who has hit his only prior free throw attempts today. He's 2 for 2. Now Georgia takes a timeout.
We'll try and bring in the final few seconds of this game. It looks as if Georgia may have another upset brewing in this one. NC State and Duke, however, a very close game. 4.5 minutes left. Let's go back to Tim Brando and Dick Vitale.
Back here in the ACC, John Saunders, thank you. It's 67-66. Inside, Danny Ferry losing it. Trying to go up.
They get the ball inside to Ferry. Comes up short, little head fake. Shacklefort's got 4 fouls. Remember that.
A lot of people have 4. Ferry, Quinn Snyder just got his 4th, while we will bring us back up to date on what's going on down there.
Okay, Tim Brando, it's a tight one. 1-point game with 2 seconds left. Let's go back.
Make it a 2-point lead.
There's still that 3-point shot. So if he makes it, 3-point spread, anything could happen, but it's going to take a big one.
Dwayne Shinsis on the bench scored only 2 points today. He was a non-factor. 2 free throws by Rod Cole, and here's a timeout taken by the Florida Gators.
How about Jody Patton? What a performance he had. 24 points, 5 3-pointers.
The freshman was the star of the game. Not only did he hit those 3-point shots, but he was perfect in his free throws. He hit 7 consecutive free throws. Let's go down to Gary Sparber and Dan Issel for some final comments on this tournament.
All right, thank you, Tom. We have had a good time, no question about that. And the score right now, we take it right down to the wire, gives you an idea of how close the games have been today.
They really have been. It's been an outstanding game. I don't think Georgia shot the ball that well, and it's really difficult to know why they're this close.
Pass. Maxwell, he was fouled. He was fouled as he tried to get the shot away. There's 1 second left, and Vernon Maxwell will go to the line for 2. Now, he'll have to hit 1 and then try to intentionally miss the second.
And Normson has no big man to put in. Here comes the long pass. Maxwell catches it, comes down and lets it fly, and there's Cole with the reach in. So,
and Rod Cole is fouled out with 1 second left.
Now do you put Shinsis in the lineup? He's big. You throw it up there, let him go get the rebound.
He's just sitting on the bench, not even joining the huddle of the Florida Gators. Mike Herron comes in to replace Cole.
Barring a miracle, it looks like Georgia will upset Florida and advance in the Southeastern Conference. But in the ACC, we have an extremely tight game, about 2.5 minutes left. It's NC State and Duke. Let us go back to Tim Brando and Dick Vitale with the final couple of minutes of a very good game.
And just as we return, Chucky Brown puts it down inside the paint, tying the game at 71.
Chucky gets the score, but what a play by Monroe to make the pass. He's really doing a tremendous job off the bench, Rodney Monroe. Great move, though, by Chucky Brown.
71-71 the score. Look at the ball movement by North Carolina State.
Talking about, they swing it side to side, and there's Monroe. He dumps it down to Brown, and Brown finishes it off. He closes it out.
Boy, everyone has gotten involved. While we were away, Phil Henderson connected for 3 for Duke. His first deuce, or actually 3-point play in this half. Everyone playing so well, both from a reinforcement and starting role standpoint. 2:06 left. We're tied at 71. Who will play Carolina in the title game tomorrow? That story coming up.
Smith and Grice, good look at it. Here's your bump foul. Somehow gets it to go down. What a shot.
Hit by 2. Lots of time left. 1:22. Boy, the Villanova coaching staff went bananas when Miller, it appeared, palmed the ball at half court. There was no call. And then the fact that they called the bucket good. Lane trying to keep it alive. Massey's got it.
Gary Massey may have gotten away with a walk when he came down, but did he sky to get the ball?
And Villanova won't.
Mike Krzyzewski says run clock, hold it out.
Well, they go to an excellent, they have an excellent plan here where they come up above the foul line extended. Notice it right here, all 5 Duke players, and what they're trying to establish here. Well, right now, North Carolina State's letting them take time off the clock. They know they're going to get the ball back, Jimmy Valvano.
That's the game clock you see. 16 seconds remaining on the shot clock.
They try to establish a backdoor cut when they come up above that foul line extended. Look at Ferry. Does he want the ball?
Now the 1-4 comes from Duke. Snyder gets it inside, but Ferry can't convert. 25 seconds left. State with an opportunity to tie.
Well, Jimmy Valvano signaling.
There it is, with 1-4.
See, you call the 1-4. 4 people along the baseline. That's not really a stack, Timmy. The 14 set he's calling. He isolates a man, and he runs 4 people along the baseline, forcing you to play the guy out front one-on-one.
Well, I've learned something again, but that is something he utilizes so often.
Offensive threat here in this lineup. 2, he knows Del Negro likes the ball at crunch time. 3, this opens up as he looks at the alignment. This opens up right now the passing lane when you extend like this on Shackelford.
Shackelford's got it.
He
loses it.
He lost the ball.
Valvano wanted a foul. He would not get it.
Timeout by Duke.
Just 5 seconds left. And Valvano on the court, he can't believe it.
Well, right now, he's got to watch out for the, what do you call now? The technical. He's out of the coach's box. Now watch this. Ferry playing defensively. There's the look inside. They put the perimeter D. He tries to spin. The ball pops out of his hand.
He wanted the foul on Bricky from the backside.
But I don't understand why. Look at this now. He's out of the coach's box. Had a quick steal. We get the foul.
Corciani, and it's a 2-shot foul against Corciani.
What a gutty call right there. Was he going for the ball? They call the intentional, and more than the 2 shots, it means possession of the ball.
I tell you what happened there, Dick. He really rammed his body through Ferry into the press table, and I think that's why the 2-shotter came up. See it right there. Had he just gone with the arm, it probably would have been a 1-1, don't you think?
Well, I'll tell you right there, tough call by the official. They've been calling 1-on-1s if you make any effort to play with the ball. In this game, we haven't had situations like that. Usually, he's automatic right here. Got to give the official guts. If he's seen it that way, he made the call, he made it quick, and he made it with authority.
Oh, he missed them both, but remember,
they get the ball.
They get the ball.
Remember again, the clock does not start until the ball is touched on the floor by a player.
And that means that there could be a second, maybe less than a second, maybe a half count.
Remember, the game doesn't end. Looking at a 0-0-0, the game ends with the sound of the horn.
What a great game. And despite who comes up with this victory, easily it has been the premium offering we've had thus far here in the ACC tournament. He missed it, but it's all over.
Apropos that Bricky gets the rebound. He's done such a great job here. There's two outstanding coaches, two really superstars, Valvano and Mike Krzyzewski.
K meets V, and Dean Smith will take on Krzyzewski tomorrow in the final. That's all from here for Dick Vitale. Tim Brando saying so long. Let's get it back to John Saunders.
Thank you, gentlemen. 73-71 is the final. The Duke Blue Devils with another shot at the North Carolina Tar Heels. This will be in the final of the ACC tournament as Duke knocks off NC State. North Carolina, of course, earlier with the win over Maryland. We have a very big game brewing at Madison Square Garden in the Big East for the chance to meet Syracuse. It's Villanova against Pittsburgh. Final seconds of the game. Villanova has the lead. Tom Grice is going to the line. Let's go to Mike Gorman and Ron Perry.
Got the ball. And he wanted, I think, the play that was probably designed was to get the ball back inside to Charles Smith. And I think he just said, man, I might as well launch it now. Took it pretty quickly, though.
Tom Grice at the free throw line. Paul Evans and his coaching staff, not much more they can do. In fact, there's nothing more they can do because they don't have any more timeouts.
Villanova's put themselves in a great position. It's just execution time now for the big guy.
All right, Tom Grice again, 68% free throw shooter. Yeah.
Oh, used all of the rim, too.
The lead is now 2. No smile on the face of Tom Grice. No smile there yet. And Villanova calls a timeout.
That's a smart move, too. Second one's always a little bit easier, but Grice used all of the rim on that one and a little backboard. Villanova not letting Pittsburgh get it inbounds quickly and not allow Villanova to set up the defense, which is the way you want to do it late. Try to get things in a scramble out there. Villanova with their timeouts remaining will just set up, I think, Mike, probably at midcourt, but really keep extended because you have to go for the long shot. The other thing Rowley might consider is reaching in quickly. If a Jerome Lane touches the ball, make Pittsburgh shoot a one-on-one.
Right. Villanova, the next foul would put them over the limit, so they don't have any to waste.
I haven't seen that strategy used, but up by 3 to foul. The only disadvantage, Pittsburgh, a very good rebounding team. They made the first free throw and then missed the second one on purpose. They're a good rebounding team in low, so it might be dangerous.
Here's the man of the hour for the Villanova Wildcats, Tom Grice. Lane is going to make the inbound pass. He gets the ball. Miller comes to him. Here comes Sean Miller. He's going to have to shoot it.
Got to get it off.
Gives it to Smith. Charles will take it at the buzzer. Misses it. The Villanova Wildcats are in the Big East final.
What a win for Villanova. They played this game perfectly, and I think they caught Pitt a little bit flat early.
Oh, what a happy guy.
What a reaction. Villanova has won a national championship, but they haven't won a Big East championship under Rowley's tenure. He'd love to get one. What a win.
So the regular season champions, the Pittsburgh Panthers, have been defeated here this afternoon. Rolly Massimino will be talking with us in a minute. 72-69.
Rolly Massimino and the Villanova Wildcats are the winners. They'll face Syracuse in the Big East Championship. Let's go to the Metro Conference semifinals. Memphis State and Florida State under 2.5 to play.
Wayne Paley on the free throw line, sticks it. His 11th point of the day in the 2 minutes 6 seconds left in this semifinal game at the Metro Tournament. Memphis State leads Florida State by 8 at 73-65. Off the front. Perry again. Elliot Perry. He just scored, rebounding a free throw a minute ago, and picks that one off. The freshman of the year in the Metro Conference. The guard gets his second rebound of a missed free throw. 1:51 left in the game. Memphis State by 8 with the ball. The winner here meets Louisville tomorrow in the Metro Conference Championship game.
Boy, watch them run this delay game. They're very, very good at this. They've got good, quick people, good ball handlers. Boyd, tough shot. Yeah. Whoa. Woo. By Boyd. 17 for Boyd and a 10-point lead for Memphis State. Their biggest lead of the day. Look at the crowd in the Mid-South Coliseum. It's looking like Memphis State and Louisville tomorrow. Dawson misses. Ballard rebounds.
Florida State may be reduced to wondering whether 19-10 will be good enough to get them in the NCAAs. Listen to the crowd. A foul on Theron Mays. His fourth.
Brett, I'm absolutely amazed at the way Elliot Perry gets up on those free throws, on those rebounds. You saw him get that one earlier. He got one and hooked it back in.
He's an amazing player. They're enjoying it here in Memphis.
And well, they should. Memphis State well in command. Looks like they'll face Louisville.
Memphis State by 11. Perry's second free throw. In and out. Rebound, Tab Hunter.
Got to go threes. McLeod's going to shoot it.
Seminoles need a bunch in a hurry. Derek Mitchell spins in the lane. The shot won't fall. And it's out of bounds to Florida State with 59 seconds left in the game. There's that Villanova final. They upset Pitt in the Big East today.
Surprises around the country today.
Boy.
How about Georgia beating Florida?
Dawson scores. And Florida State calls another timeout. Seminoles down 9 points now. This timeout stops the clock with 50 seconds left in the game.
We were just showing you the final seconds of this game, Memphis State.
Memphis State fans feeling pretty good about things right now. Purvis get nervous? Not too likely. Looks like Louisville to Memphis State tomorrow, though. 50 seconds left in this one. Tigers up by 9.
You know, in all the tournaments, the season games that have been played in the Metro Conference, Memphis State and Louisville have absolutely dominated this league in its 11-year history.
Larry Finch's Memphis State team has won 4 tournament championships, 4 conference championships. Louisville has won 9 regular season championships and 5 tournament championships. George McLeod has fouled out of the game. 19 points and a tremendous effort today. McLeod with handshakes all the way around. Good year, Larry. He'll be in postseason play somewhere. The question is where? We won't know until 3 o'clock Sunday.
You know, it must be awfully tough for a club like Florida State. There are probably 12 to 15 of them around the country. And they have to sit there for that 24-hour period and wait. Wait to find out whether or not they're going to get into the big show.
The biggest question that Florida State is asking themselves right now is 19-10 going to be good enough? Last year, they were oh so close and weren't taken to the tournament. What will it be this year? Tomorrow we'll all know. I just know I'm glad I'm not part of the selection committee. They're in Kansas City right now. Tough job. Go through all that tomorrow.
Really a tough job.
If Florida State goes, the Metro will have 3 teams in it this year because Memphis State winning this one going to the championship game quite likely is going to be in it. And Louisville certainly is. That's a 3 by Theron Mays. He has 10 points now. 25 seconds left in the game. 1-1. Derek Mitchell committed the foul, his first. I don't know, Larry. That's a tough call, isn't it? Since we don't make the decision, all we can do is like the rest of the people do and guess.
It's an easy call for me. I can sit here and just say that's what it's going to be, but the tough one's going to be on those guys sitting in that committee.
Yeah. Elliot Perry back to the free throw line. Elliot with 11 points today.
It's quite an effort by this Memphis State team this year. They're coming back from all that adversity that they had early in the year. And it really started when Vincent Askew decided to go pro. You know, if he'd have stayed around, if Gray had stayed around, if Alexander had stayed around, don't tell me what would have happened with this Tiger team.
They were a possible Final Four team with all those guys on it. 25 seconds left. 9-point lead. Elliot Perry gets them both. Dwight Boyd has had a big day for Memphis State. He has 17 points. Steve Ballard having the biggest day of his career here with 15 points. Theron Mays misses. Tad Hunter takes it up and scores. That's a 7-point lead. Memphis State with 11 seconds left. Ballard's going to ice the cake. That makes the final. The championship match is made. The Tigers of Memphis State against the Cardinals of Louisville tomorrow. Florida State finishes at 19-10, and Memphis State goes into the championship match at 19-10. This is a good ball game today, Larry.
It's been the best game of the tournament. It's been a tremendous day, and we're only halfway there. Still plenty more to come. Bob Lee will join you in just a moment, so stay with us. Let's run down some of the scores from today and some of the games you've seen right here on ESPN. First of all, from the ACC, Maryland and North Carolina. The Tar Heels with the victory as they go back into the ACC championship game, something they have not won since 1982. They win at 74-64. J.R. Reed with 19 points and 14 rebounds. Also from the ACC semifinals, a game you just saw end a while ago, Duke and NC State. Duke wins the game by 2 points, 73-71, so they will go on to face the North Carolina Tar Heels. In the Big East semifinals, Seton Hall and Syracuse. Number 13 Orangemen had their hands full, but they win at 68-63 in this one. They will go on to face Villanova because Villanova pulled out the victory over Pitt. It was a 3-point hard-fought victory, 72-69. Is the final there. In the Big 8 semifinals being played at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri and Oklahoma. Oklahoma wins it by 3 in a game that Missouri very nearly pulled out in this one. However, Stacey King hit a key turnaround near the end of the game to win it for Oklahoma 102-99. Also in the Big 8 semifinals, Kansas and Kansas State. It's in the second half, but Kansas State has everything in command. If you can believe it, 44-27. They're up 17 points in the second half. The Metro semifinals, South Carolina and Louisville. Louisville had no problem, came storming out in this one to win it 89-57, and with that, they'll go on to meet Memphis State. You just saw the finish of that game. Memphis State played Florida State and pulled out the 7-point victory. 81-74 is the final, so they will go on to face Louisville. In the Pac-10 semifinals underway at Tucson, Arizona, Arizona with a 10-point lead over Stanford. The Cardinal had beaten Arizona once this year. They're trying to make it twice, but they have a big deficit to make up. It's in the second half, 86-76 the score there. Southeastern Conference, LSU and Kentucky. LSU was up 5 at the half, but they could not hang on as Kentucky wins it. 86-80 is the final there. They will go on to face Georgia because Georgia pulls off their second upset of the tournament. They beat Auburn, and today they beat Florida 72-70. Florida had a chance to win this game. They were down by 1 with seconds remaining, but Vernon Maxwell threw the ball away, and as a result, Georgia hung on for the 72-70 victory, and they'll go against Kentucky in the final. In the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan. The Buckeyes perhaps needed this victory to get into the NCAA tournament. 95-76, though, is the final. Michigan and the Wolverines pull that out. And one other score to check on from our first game, Niagara and Boston University. Boston U joins the field of 64 as they win the ECAC North Atlantic Championship.